guys, and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, hi, my name is Misha, and if you're returning, thank you so much for returning. So today I am going to be doing a blanket tutorial for beginning knitters. Now, I mean, this is like super beginning, one of the easiest blankets. And in this knitting tutorial, you are going to learn the 2 basic stitches of knitting. So before anything else, let's see what we're working with. So I'm going to be working with 1 pound of love. I have a second ball too. Of pink yarn. This is the yarn. This is a worsted weight 4. So it is on the medium side of yarn. It's not too thick, it's not too thin. Now, that being said, we next have to pick our needles. So for this project, I think I want to use a 10.5 because I want this blanket to be, yes, warm, but also like not too tight. So when stitches are with smaller needles, they are a tighter stitch, so they're going to not have as much flexibility. The larger the needle, comparison to the smaller the yarn, a more like fluffier, breathable, movable pattern. So with that being said, we are going to cast on. So I want to teach you how to learn how long the extra of your cast on needs to be. So let's switch views so you can see my hands, so you can see what I'm talking about. So unlike crochet, when you're casting on, you're going to have a working side of the yarn and then the excess that you need to cast on. So let me show you what I mean. So this is the excess that I have right now, because we're just going to show an example, and this would be considered like a gauge swatch. Okay, so for casting on, you're going to take one part of your needles, you're going to pull up like so, turn your thumb over, pull through, and that gives you your first 2 stitches. After that, this method only gives you 1 stitch. So let's cast on 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now that you have your 10 stitches, do you see how small this side has gotten? You could not do, like, let's say 100 stitches with the rest of this. You see how much yarn this took? So let's see how many stitches more we can get with this to figure out how much we're going to need. So we have 10, let's do another 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We barely even made it to 5. This is not going to make it to 10. You will maybe get another 3 stitches out of this. So now we know that this length, right from where it's at to here, only makes about 15 stitches. So let's take it off so you can get an idea of what that looks like. Boom, boom, boom. So right here to right here is only going to get you about 15 stitches. So now that you know that, you know how to plan your project accordingly. So I am making a baby blanket and I want to do 10 by 10 blocks. I'll show you what that means. So I want to cast on 70 for the project that I'm working, because this is a blanket for a toddler. So I want to make it big enough where she can use it for years to come. So all you do is take the yarn that you had, that you knew was the certain amount of stitches, hold on, like this, and all you have to do is measure it out like that. Just do one like that, and that way you know that it'll cover the amount of stitches that you're using. So let's start by casting on 70. So we're going to, once again, I'm going to show you the cast on process. We're going to put our finger there, pull up, twist your thumb over, make sure that you're going into that in between, and then pull that thread through. Ready? Up. And that, oh shoot, I accidentally slid that off, but that creates the first 2 stitches. So see, let's do it again. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that is our first 10 stitches. So I'm just going to cast on the other 60 and then I will be back. Okay, so we have our 70 stitches on. It's going to look small right now because this is just the cast on. The cast on always looks smaller than the actual project is. So keep that in mind, especially when you're doing gauging swatches. Never gauge off of the cast on. Make sure that you do a few stitches, a few rows, because this is always going to be smaller than the actual project. So here is our 70 stitches. Now you're going to turn your work over. This is the cast on. Hold on. This is the cast on. This is your working. Now, obviously right now this one's short because I did it to the exact measurement that I needed, but normally this could be longer and sometimes it's easy to get it confused, so make sure that you're holding it back. For this pattern, we are going to first start out with the knit stitch. So we're going to do 10 knit stitches. So ready, we're going to go right here and do a knit. So for a knit stitch, you're going to put it facing upward. We're going to wrap around, pull through, pull out. Now, you see how this is kind of loose? You can tighten that up by pulling this like that. Okay, just in case you want to keep your ends tight. I am not the best with tight ends. That's just never been, I don't have the right tension for that, but I mean, this is how I fix that problem. So once again, we're going to do 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, wrap it around, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so now that we have our first 10 stitches, this is what it's looking like. This is the knit stitch. So for our next 10, we are going to do the other stitch, which is called a purl stitch. For that, you are going to need your yarn in front like this. So we're going to pull it frontward. We're going to take this needle and now push it downward into the stitch, like so. Wrap around and pull up. So this is going to be 1. We're going to do this for the next 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. You got to push the stitches up sometimes. That's totally fine. 4. Oops, let's not lose that 5th one. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that is going to be our first 20 stitches. Let's push this up. And we have now the purl. Now, do you see on the purl ones, they have these little lumps? That is going to be your first row. See? Row 1. And then on the knit side, you see how it's smooth? So now let's continue that to the end. So we're going to do 10 knit, 10 purl, 10 knit, 10 purl. Okay, I'll see you at the end of the row. Okay, now that we have our first row done, do you see how it is already exponentially longer? Okay, so now we're going to flip our work. You always have to flip your work at the end of each row with knitting. That is how it works. So let's do that. And now we are going to have, do you see the little bumps again? Purl. So if there's a little bump, you purl. If there is a flat, you knit. So we're just going to continue the same pattern as before, except where you see the little bump, you're going to purl. So we're going to purl 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we are going to move the yarn back so that way we can now do the knit. And we're going to knit 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. So we're going to continue this all the way down the same way that we did before. If there is a little bump, you're going to purl. If there is a flat, you're going to knit. We are going to continue these 2 rows for 10 rows. So 10 of these little bumps. So this is 1, this is 2. We're not going to count this first row. Like the cast on, we're not going to count. Some people do, some people don't. It just depends, but I'm not going to, because none of the other rows are going to have a cast on row. So we're in 1, 2. So when we get to 10 little bumps on each side, we are going to meet again, and we're going to talk about where we're going to switch in the pattern from there. So let's continue to finish this row, and then we have 8 more rows, and then I'll see you. Okay, so now that you've finished with the first 10 rows, you're going to have what looks like these little blocks, and that's exactly where you want to be. Mind you, I did restart because I cast it on 90 instead of 70. I just felt like 70 wasn't going to be big enough for what I'm trying to do. But yeah, so this is what it looks like. Like I told you, don't trust the cast on because it like will get bigger. So let's take a look at that. Okay, now that you have your first 10 rows done, I'm going to show you how we're going to switch over. So let's start that. Okay, so now we want this block to be this block on top. So how we do that is super simple. We're just going to purl where there are knits. Okay, so let's get our stuff ready. Here we go. So instead of knitting right here, we are going to purl. So we're going to put that through right there. And we're just going to purl 10. So now you're going to have the little bumps, and that's okay. Next, we are going to knit where there's purl. So you see right here, we are going to knit. And then we're just going to knit 10. Super easy. Just like that, and boom. And now you see there is knit where there were bumps. And we're just going to finish that for the rest of this row. And then for the next 10, it's the same thing as it was before. Where there are bumps, you purl. Where there are knits, you knit. Where like the smooth side is. It's just this first one we're going to do the opposite of what's there, but we are just going to do this. Okay, so we're just finishing off this row. Where there are knits, we are purling. So let's do this. And then I will show you the beginning of the second row. Well, actually, technically, it's the 12th row because we are on the 11th right now. But just in case what I was saying sounded a little confusing, which it's okay if it does, because sometimes I confuse myself. Okay, so now you see we have the purls right here. We have our started knit row. And now it's the same as before. Where there's a knit, you knit. Where there's a purl, you purl. And we're going to do this for an additional 10 rows. And then after that, we will switch again so that way you get these cute little blocks all over. So I will do this for 10 rows and then I will see you guys. Okay, if you run into this issue where you accidentally skipped a stitch and now you have this like looser thread, this is a really easy fix. So what you're going to do is just put this on this one, and if you want to do it where it is the same as this one, a purl, you just flip it back and put it on. And it may look funky at first, but when you're going back to do it, it won't. So because I'm switching over to knit, see, it just goes right back into the row. So if that ever happens to you, it is a really, like I said, easy fix. Hey you guys, okay, so if you repeat those 20 rows over and over again, this is what you should have. I am on block 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm on block 5. So this is what you should have. This is what it should look like. Also in this video, if I make mistakes or like just common knitting errors, I'm going to show you how to fix them, okay? Because sometimes when you're beginning, you make like really common mistakes and they're easy they're easy fixes. So I'm just going to pop in and show you those when they happen because I already did that. So this is what you should be having, cute little blocks. Look how cute that is. It looks kind of like a woven black basket. In another video, I'll show you how to decorate this, like to just like upscale it a little bit, but this is what we're having, little blocks. I love this, and this is also a very soft pattern, and it's very stretchy, so a kid could wrap it around themselves, like, well, obviously a little girl because it's pink, but actually no judgment. If a little boy wants a pink blanket, let him have it. But very stretchy, very comfortable, and even if you wanted to make this into like a cardigan, this would be a great cardigan pattern. But for now, we're just doing a cute little toddler blanket. As far as length goes, if you want a perfect square, since you have 9 down here, you'll do 9 across, but I want it to be a little bit like longer, like rectangular shape. So I think I may do 11 or 12 boxes, which would be 10 by 12 would be like 120 rows. So but we will see after we hit like the 10th box. We'll look at length and kind of decide from there. But this is what you should be having at this point. Now that we have it knitted to the length that we wanted to, we are going to cast off. And if you don't know what casting off is, that is how you take your work off the needle. So you have to cast off to be able to use your work. If not, it'll live on the needle forever. So let's start our cast off. So casting off, you are just going to do it the same stitch that it's in. So if it's in a knit stitch, you do a knit cast off. If it's a purl stitch, you do a purl cast off. So we're going to knit 1 onto the needles, knit 2 onto the needles. Okay, now that you have these 2 stitches, we are going to grab this first stitch and pull over. Now try not to tighten this too much because then it'll tighten the whole work together. So we're going to knit another one and then pull over. Knit, pull over. Try to keep the same tension that you've had the whole project so that way one side isn't puckered. And we are going to do this until we get to the purl stitch. So we're just going to keep knitting, and that way your cast off stays in the same, like, do you see? It's the same as the pattern. If you cast off in the opposite end, it just looks different, but it's not like horrible or anything. It just casts off in that other stitch. So let's see. Right there, here's our last knit cast off. Boom. Okay, pull that yarn forward for the purl cast off. Let's just, okay, push down, bring it around, pull over. You're just going to do the same thing in a purl. It is that easy. Also, sorry for the noise outside, you guys. They are doing something out there. I don't know, construction or something. But here we go. So this is all you're going to do until you get to the very end. Once you get to the very end, I will show you how to weave your ends in, and that way your project is fully finished. Okay, so let me just continue on. We are going to just keep casting off. There, boom. And it's just like I said, we're just taking the work off the needles. So let us do this. Okay, I'm gonna just move my thread real quick. Boom. Like I said, knit, it's the same thing. You just switch back over to knit and continue to cast off. All right, you guys, I will see you at the last 2 stitches. Okay, now that we are to the last couple of stitches, we are going to finish casting off our project. Okay, so boom, the last stitch. We're going to go through, we're going to pull over, and then you are going to cut your yarn. You're going to cut your yarn, make sure it is long enough for you to be able to weave it in. So we're going to give it a cut to about there. Now some people pull it out like this. I don't. I pull it through like this because it kind of makes like its own little knot, and it just is more secure in my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. Next, I'm going to show you how to weave in. So there are a few different ways to weave your ends in. I'm going to use you can use a tapestry needle, but I'm just going to use like a sewing needle. These ones just are a little bit bigger, so let me just grab one. And you're just going to get that yarn and put it through. I give it a little twist, it makes it easier to put it through, like so. Okay, and you're just gonna go along the, you're just gonna go along the edge. Now everybody does this differently, you know, it's just what you're comfortable with. This is just how I do it. This is what works for me. Some people actually burn their ends off or even use glue. Now, burning your ends off, I used to do that when I was first learning to knit, and that does work for the most part, but it like lessens the integrity of the fibers, and so like sometimes your work will eventually come apart. Weaving your ends in really is the best way to keep it together. Also, if you weave your ends in, you can also take it apart if you ever need to like let's say something happens and you need to fix it, or you want to change something on it, you notice an error, you know, things like that. You can definitely do that. We're just going to go along the side. Look at, just put it in like that. Hold on, push it down. Let me get a little bit closer so you could see a little better. But I am just weaving it in, literally, and then pulling through like so. And then I'm just gonna go back in to this side where I have it already, because it's going to make it tighter and make it very like snug as a bug, so it will not come out no matter how many washes you do, no matter what. Like once it's snug in there, it really does just stay in there. So we're just going to weave it in, give it a push, pull it, and then just give this like a little bit of tug like that to fully get it correct in there. And then we are just going to take our scissors and cut off the excess like that, give it a tug, and boom, it's done. It's in there. Your end is weaved in. So all we have to do is weave in the end on the other side, and this is done, you guys. How exciting. Let me do the other side for you too. Now this is the side where we cast it on, so these are going to look a little bit different than cast off, but we're just going to do the same process. You're just going to take your needle and just weave it through these loops like so. Give it a little bit of a pull like that, and then just push it through to the other side and do the same thing. A little tug, and then we are going to just push this through and just make sure it's really snug, so that way it will not come out for anything. Ooh, that one's a little tight. Okay, pull through like that, and then we're just going to cut off the excess and just give this a little tug so that little end goes in like that, and we are done. All of your ends are now weaved in. Hi guys, so all the ends are weaved in, and you have an adorable pink little baby blanket. If you use pink, you could use whatever color. This pattern really does go for boys or girls. It is so cute. It is so fluffy. and you did it. So let's go over this really quickly. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is for zero experience, okay? You can pick up needles and thread and literally start knitting this today. And I hope that you guys really enjoyed it. If there was anything that I didn't cover or anything that you have questions about, leave it in the comments, okay? Because I'm going to be checking these comments on this video every day to make sure I help you beginning knitters make your first cute and adorable baby blanket. Now, mind you, this is a pattern in multiples of 10. So each of these little blocks is 10 across, 10 down, 10 across, 10 down. Now, if you guys want a written out pattern, I can totally do that for you. Let me know in the comments. I was going to put them on Etsy, but I feel like this pattern is so easy that, like, does it really need a written out pattern? Look at how cute this is. And with these kind of beginner knitting blankets, as time goes on, you can always, like, add embellishments. You can always, like, add decorations to it. You can do whatever you want with it. But this is your first beginning knitter blanket and you did it. All right, you guys, thank you so much for following my tutorial. This is my very first tutorial. If there's anything that you feel that I didn't explain well, please let me know in the comments because I'm going to learn and just keep doing better. All right, you guys, thank you so much. If you like this kind of content, make sure that you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and know that I am working around the clock to make knitting, crocheting, cooking videos for you guys. And I hope that you really enjoy them. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!